You're dealing with the oldies here.
My name's Sheridan Rogers and this is my wife Jan.
So I'm Jay.
And I'm Luke.
Hi, I'm Jordan.
I'm Maddie.
Hi, I'm Pastor Wayne.
Pastor Wayne. I'm just a child of God, Josh. That's the only title that I need, but that's all right.
I think something that we've been grateful for growing up as pastors' kids was that we were never pushed into the limelight. We were never forced to do things that we didn't want to do. And I feel like, in a way, it's taught us to serve God's house in a way where that side of platform is removed.
My kids' church days I remember so fondly. Kids ablaze, and we had conferences, and it was really fun. And Mum and Dad were always there, so we were never sent off alone kind of thing. It was always something we did as a family.
Seeing my parents, their love for Jesus, their love for the house of God, their love for people, how that was displayed, showed ministry to me as something to aspire to, not just ministry as in like on stage singing in front of thousands of people, but ministry as in loving people, discipling people.
We have always wanted to cheer them on as the young guys, young men that they are, encouraging them not to try and be someone that they're not, but to excel in who they are.
Something I'm passionate about is that it doesn't say in the Bible that evangelists need to go and preach the gospel. It says every disciple needs to go and preach the gospel. And I guess you can put that into that situation as in, come on, we're all called for this thing, not just the pastor's kid. And
all Christians are ministers, and some Christians you might call pastor or whatever, but all of us have a role to play in the kingdom. My parents, Don and Jill, they just always encouraged us to do things that we felt interested in or called to, is interested in.
Growing up, I didn't think I would become a pastor, but when you follow Jesus, I love how he positions you and how he has a better plan for you than you've got for yourself.
We always wanted them to love the house of God, but also we never wanted that to be a distraction from just enjoying family life. I think we wanted to create a loving home, and I think our Christian values is not something that's external, but it's within us, and so we wanted to create a home that the children would love, and as Bruce said, that was fun. We were adventurous, even when we shifted so many times.
You know, I was 7 when we moved to Wellington for you to pastor the church, and at that time I probably thought, oh, to be in ministry you need to be a good Christian, you have to be a pastor, but you know, it wasn't forever that you were pastoring the church, and you moved on, and through that time, I think that's when I had that realization. That's when I sort of figured out, actually, we are just meant to be ourselves in whatever environment we're in. We're supposed to represent Jesus in whatever environment we're in.
I was in business for nearly 20 years, and things came to a crisis where I was put on the line, and without going into depth, I sold the business, and it sold within a day, and I was suddenly in a whole new environment, and looking to what was going on to next. I'd done quite a lot of work for the national office. Then suddenly I was asked by the national leaders for me to take over the church in Christchurch. Well, that was never in my picture, but we both sat there weeping because we knew straight off this was something that God was inspiring us to take up. Sat in the Sunday, that was on Saturday, and Sunday we were sitting in the church service thinking, what are we doing? And spoke to the pastor at the end, and he just burst into tears and said, Trevor, I think you're going to go. Within 2 hours, we were on the plane to Christchurch.
It was amazing to see Mum and Dad as well sell the business and I guess basically give up everything. But that's when we followed. We were going out young and in love. And
jumped in the car and drove to Christchurch.
We
to
did.
help.
Yeah, we had no idea at the time as to what that would mean for us further down the track.
No. And actually that's probably where we learnt most about leadership really was the doing and just serving passionately. And the thing is, the generation before us let us do that. They were really entrusting, empowering, letting us do things that we probably weren't ready to do at all when I look back. And they would encourage us, inspire us.
I remember when my parents went to London, and my mother said to me at a time, I was ministering up in London and about to fly home, and she said to me, "Sorry, Sam, I'm not there for your kids. We had just started having kids." And I felt prompted in that moment just to say to her, "Don't worry, Mum, you're passing on something so much greater than time. You're passing on a legacy of faith." And I love now that my children are stirred up to win their world for Jesus.
Just hearing about my grandparents' story, just about how my grandfather got a word and from God and just up and left and just trusted God through that. And it really just wasn't just for the church and the people that he was meeting. Yes, he impacted people, but it was for the future generations. It was for my generations, it's for the generations to come. You know, there were some battles that we didn't have to fight that they've already been fought for us, and I love that there's so much richness within our movement, within the Acts movement. We get to fight some battles so that we can make way for the next generation coming through and so on.
You know, we want to create a world which will be better for our children.
If we're not filtering the decisions that we're making, the habits that we're living with, if we're not filtering them through the framework of how does this impact the next generation, then those decisions are going to be poorer without that filter. You know that
because the world changes rapidly, and generations change rapidly, and each generation is viewing the world differently and dealing with relationships differently and viewing the world and the future differently. And
there's a lot of old people with wisdom and life experience, lots of years, but there's also this whole generation of younger people with expectation, excitement, energy that are coming through as well.
You know, one generation will tell of another of the mighty works of God. The moment we stop empowering another generation to come through, it's where that family line and the spirit, you know, that whakapapa, that's where that stops. The miracles stop when we stop passing it on. That's why I think empowering is such an important thing.
It's easy, it's natural for us as the older generation to look after our household, and that's right and that's appropriate. But when you're in the church, you've got this family. We say we're a family, we say we're God's family, but then when it comes down to it, we kind of turn a blind eye to a lot of needs that we see in the younger generation.
Ruby would come home from school, you know, as a leader and the like, and she was dealing with questions and issues that I certainly didn't deal with at high school. But together we could have a conversation, and then while I'm also learning from you, you're able to go away and go, oh, you know, yeah, that's really helpful. And again, that idea of whānau, it's intergenerational. You know, it used to be where you would have 3 or 4 generations living in that sort of village, to that village effect.
I've got sheep. They're always looking over the fence for greener grass, and even if they're in a paddock that's full of green grass. And I think, you know, we need to look at who's around us, who's God, because they are full of talent and they're full of energy and they're full of life, and they need you to believe in them.
You know, one of the things you look at is roles change in life, and I think one of the things Helen and I have probably been quite good at is to navigate those seasons of change. And change doesn't take you out of the battle. Change repositions you for another phase. I believe every generation really has a role to play. And if you're here and you're older, you know, you've got a valuable role to play. Even though we might talk about the younger generation, the older generation are so vital because they need fathers, they need mothers, they need that security, they need to look and say Christianity works. I want to be like that when I'm older.
I am so thankful for the Acts movement that we belong to and the churches that we have served in and are serving in, for the chance to receive the blessing it is from God to be able to pour into other generations and to see a legacy like that continue on after us. That so many people, I think, miss out on seeing a physical legacy, but a spiritual legacy.
Every generation is building on top of what's gone before. And I'm really thankful that we're a generational movement that has a great platform, but also a great opportunity. And so let's make sure that we never take for granted the platform that we have, but also we don't neglect the opportunity that right now is in front of us.